Hi guys, this is David. Welcome back to this advanced Excel training. So in the first video, we grabbed data from the web. Using Power Query, we were able to transform it, and now our dataset is ready to be used to build our dashboard. So this is our dataset, and now we're gonna go to the Config tab. In cell B4, I want to put the name region in the cell right next to it, the sub-region, because now I want to build my drop-down menus for my dashboard tab. And therefore, in cell B5 and C5, I'm going to create formulas. So how do I get a list of my regions that I can use for my drop-down menu? So if I were to refer to my data table, I would start typing up my, and it's giving me the option of my data, which is what I want. Again, a particular field, opening brackets, and choosing the region field, closing brackets, and pressing enter. It would return all of the values for all of my records for the region field. Obviously, not exactly what I want. I want a list of unique regions. So I need to go back to my formula and edit, and it's going to be very simple. I'm going to use the unique function. So unique, opening parenthesis, my list of region from the data set called my data, closing parenthesis at the end, pressing enter, and now it looks better already. I have a list of unique regions. That's good, but it's not perfect because the first thing I'm noticing is that it is not sorted. Again, easy fix. Let's go back to our formula and let's use the sort function. So sort, that's what I want to sort. Is there a sort index? No, because I only have one column, so I'm going to skip it. So comma, comma. And what is the sorting order? Whether it's ascending or descending, it needs to be ascending, so from A to Z, closing parenthesis, pressing enter, and now we have a sorted list of unique regions. That's good, but there is something missing. What if I do not want to be forced to make a selection for my regions? I want the ability to select all. So all has to be added to my list. It needs to be like stacked, like on top of my list. So let's go back to our formula once more, one last time. And yeah, the keyword is stack. We're going to use vstack because we are stacking vertically. So one column. vstack, opening parenthesis, and within double quotes, all, comma, and then my list of sorted unique regions. Pressing enter, and now I have one formula that will return all of the values that I need for my first drop-down menu. So it's ready to be used on the dashboard tab. So now we can go to the dashboard tab, and in cell C23 here, we are going to use data validation. So on the Excel ribbon, go to data, data validation, and it should open a new window, and it should already be on the settings, not like tab. What do we want to allow? We want to allow a list, and we need to provide the source. The source obviously is going to be on the config tab, and that's going to be my list of unique regions with all also as an option. Clicking on OK. And now you see that as you select C3, there is a arrow right next to it with our list here. So we can select all, for example. All right, we have our first drop-down menu. Going back to the config tab, now we need to create a similar formula to get subregions. This one is going to be a little bit more complicated because now it depends on the selection that we've made on the region. We still need to display all, but then it's going to be a list if we selected all, or a list if we selected a specific like region. So a little more complexity, but we can make it work. So obviously it's going to start the same way because we need to add all. So v stack all, and then we're going to have an if statement because we have two possibilities, whether the region that we selected is all or if it's another value, whether it's Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, or Oceania. So if, so what is the first logical test? If the value on the dashboard tab in cell C23 equals all, then what do I want to return? I want to return a list of sorted unique subregion. So sort, what do I want to sort? Unique, unique what? Unique subregions from my data set. So my data, which field? The subregion, with brackets, closing parentheses to close the unique function. Sort index, I'm going to ignore because I only have one column. So comma, comma, and descending or ascending order, I want ascending. Closing parentheses to close my sort function, and then comma. So what is the value if it's false? So if I did not select all, if I selected a specific region, now I need to provide a different list. And again, that's going to be a list of sorted unique values that match the region that I selected. Sort, unique, and then I need to apply a filter. So what do I want to filter? I want to filter my subregion from the my data dataset. So my data brackets subregion, closing the bracket. What is the condition for my filter? Well, it needs to match the region that I selected on the dashboard tab in cell C23. So where are my records? So my data brackets region, where the region equals cell C23, closing like the parentheses to close my filter. Oh, hold on. All right, I was not done quite yet. So closing the parentheses because I want to make sure everything is closed like properly. And now my sort index that I want to ignore, so comma, comma, and then my sorts, whether it's descending or ascending, again, it needs to be ascending, A to Z, and then closing my parentheses. And I need one more, I believe, pressing enter. And now, okay, we are done with that crazy formula. So again, quite complex, but ultimately it's returning all of the subregions based on my selection for the region. And also like handling the fact that I may have not made a selection because I selected actually, like all, not a specific region. And now, of course, we can go to the dashboard tab, and in cell C24, we can apply data validation. So again, on the Excel ribbon, go to data validation. We want to allow a list. And the source now, there is a trick, because depending on the selection that I made for the region, the source might not be the same length. Maybe I have like 3 values available, maybe I have 10. So selecting like a range the regular way is not ideal. But with the formula that we created an array that starts in a specific cell, and it's going to make things much easier. So of course, the source is going to be on the config tab. It's going to start in cell C5, but I don't need to drag my selection all the way down. Instead, I can use the pound sign. So it's going to be C5 pound sign. That tells Excel, no, like use that array formula and returns the values that are returned by the formula, regardless, no, like of the length of the number of values. So let's try it out. Let's click on OK. And now I have all of my list. So let's say that for my region, I'm selecting Europe. Now I have all, followed by all of the subregions for Europe. So it's working properly. All right, now we need to start building our table. So in cell B26, I'm going to start entering my headers. So rank for B26, country in the next cell, population 2022 next, population 2023 next, change, then region, and finally sub-region. All right, obviously the data for my table will be based on my selection on the region and the sub-region. So I should probably also add the labels region and sub-region. And if you take a look at my headers, it's not necessarily the same order as my data table. Because in my data table, it's country, population 22, population 23, region, sub-region, change. On the dashboard, it's country, population 22, population 23, change, region, sub-region. So not the same, like order. So I'm going to have to break it like down into the 2 different formulas. And also because I want those 2 last fields to be hidden, possibly, if I do not want to display them. Let's go back to our data tab. So for the first part, I want to return column number 1, column number 2, column number 3, and column number 6. So 1, 2, 3, 6. Okay. Obviously, we're going to have to apply a filter because it needs to account for the selection on the region and the sub-region. And I need to take a break here to explain to you guys how filters work in Excel. because that is quite complicated and it can be a pain in the neck. So in our case, we have uh, two filters, if you will, two blocks, one specific to the region and one specific to the subregion. Within the region, we have two possible, no, like, two possible values, whether we selected all or we selected a specific region. Same thing for the subregion. Maybe we selected all or we selected a specific sub-region. For the data to be returned, it needs to match the two big blocks, the region and the sub-region. And we're going to use the multiplier sign. So and is the multiplier sound. For or, we're going to use the plus sign, because ultimately it's one or the other. It cannot be both. If you selected all, therefore you did not select a specific region. Same thing for the sub region. So that block is going to return like 1, even though it says plus, it's going to be like 1 or 0 pretty much. Same thing here. And as you multiply like 1 or 0 by 1 or 0, the outcome would be a list of 1 or 0. So that's how I know it looks like. As an example, condition number 1, condition number 2, the outcome for condition number 1, the outcome for condition number 2, and the result is 0. And in my case, it looks like only 3 records would match my criteria. So 1, 1, and 1. So that would be record 2, record number 5, and record number 9. So knowing that, now we can start building our formula here in cell C27. All right, so let's select cell C27 again. Let's enter our formula equals choose colds. That will allow us to select specific columns because we only need columns 1, 2, 3, and 6. And now we need to provide the data that we want to select from. And we need to specify that we want to filter a data set. So filter my data. What do we want to include? And now we need to provide the logic for the filters. So 2 main blocks, one for the region and one for the subregion. And each of the 2 main blocks have like 2 sub filters. So opening parentheses to open my first big block, opening parentheses to open my first sub block. And that is if C23 equals all, closing it, plus or, and then if my records match the region that I selected. So if my data, I forgot, yeah, oh, I forgot, like, there you go. That's why it was not taking it. So if my data region, the region field, closing brackets, equals the value I selected. Closing parentheses, that's the end of my first big block. And then that's my first condition. And the second main condition, so and is going to be the multiply, like sign or the star, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to open 2 parentheses to open my second big block and my second first sub block. That is if cell C24, my subregion, equals all, or, so plus sign, opening parentheses, if my records where the subregion is equals to equal to my selection. So if my data subregion equals C24, then closing parentheses again, closing parentheses to close my filter, and comma, and I need to provide the columns that I want, and that will be within accolades. So 1, semicolon, 2, semicolon, 3, semicolon, 6. Closing the accolade, closing parentheses to close my true skulls, pressing enter, and now we have our data. So let's test to make sure it's working properly. So making a selection on Asia, and now you can see already it's displaying only Asian countries, Southern Asia. And now I have a narrowed down list based on my selection, showing the country, the population, and the change. And we will have a similar like formula, but with a condition, because again, we have a checkbox to make those fields visible or not. So it could not be the very same formula, but it's going to be very similar. Let's go back to showing up everything. So all, and now let's work on the very first column, the rank. Obviously, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a sequence. But the number of cell displaying a value will be based on what's showing right next to it for the country. So I only want a value if the country field is not empty. Equals sequence. How many rows? Well, that's going to be a count A to count the number of cells that are not empty. And that's going to be all of my cells for the country, closing parentheses. So that's the number of rows. Number of columns, I want 1, just 1 column. What's the start? Well, it should start with 1. What's the step? Well, after 1 comes 2, then 3, then 4. So the step on increment is 1. All right. Now again, let's test and make sure that it's working properly. Let's pick Europe this time and Eastern Europe. And now, since I have now like 10 countries, I have 1 to 10 in my first column. So again, it's working properly. All right. So next, we are going to create a checkbox because we want to be able to choose whether to display the last 2 columns, the region and the sub regions. So for that, we're going to find the checkbox on the Developer tab in Excel. And it's possible that you may not see it on the Excel ribbon. So the first step is to make it visible. Go to File, go to Options, go to Customize Ribbon, and on the right side, if you do not have the Developer tab right now, very likely it's because the Developer option is unchecked. So make sure to check it and click on OK. And now you should be able to see it in your Excel ribbon. So go to the Developer tab and go to Insert. You have 2 submenus, one called Form Controls and the second called ActiveX Controls. It has to be a form control, so one of these elements. And again, we want the checkbox. It's called Checkbox Form Control. Clicking on it, and now we have to put it somewhere. I'm going to put it here. We can move it after, so it does not matter. And I'm going to make a right click on it and choose Edit Text. I'm going to remove what's currently showing, and I'm going to type show region and sub region. Okay, if I want to edit it, I need to make a right click. That allows me to make it bigger. You cannot change the font or the font size, so unfortunately, it's going to look a little different compared to like everything else on the tab, but that's okay. Now we need to, again, make a right click and choose Format Control. By default, it should go all the way to the Control tab. That's where we want to be, Control. And we want to have a cell link. So let's go to Cell Link. And now we're going to go to the Config tab, where we're going to select F4. Let's click on OK. And now let's see what happens. When I check my checkbox, let's go back to the config tab. Now it's returning true. So when it's checked, it returns true. Let's go back to the dashboard. If I uncheck it now on the config tab, it's now displaying false. So it's true or false. It's binary. Okay, let's go back to the dashboard tab. And now we can create a formula for the region and the sub-region. For that, we can just leverage what we've done already, knowing that the region and sub-region should be columns 4 and 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yes. So we're going to have to change a couple of things to our formula. So let's copy it. And let's go to cell G27. I'm going to paste it. The first thing that I want to change is like the columns that I want. And I said I wanted 4 and 5. And that's it. And now there's a condition. So if my cell on the config tab in F4 is displaying true, then I want to display the values. Otherwise, I want to display nothing. So it's an if statement. So at the beginning of my formula, equals if, opening parenthesis, if config F4 equals true, comma, then return my data set. And at the end, otherwise return nothing. So double quotes, double quotes. Closing parenthesis, that's the end of my if statement. Pressing enter, and now it's returning nothing because my checkbox is not checked. What about if I check it? Now it's giving me my data. So clicking, unclicking, and now it's fully dynamic. Obviously, when I check, there's one thing I need to modify is my header, because I want to display headers if obviously there is no data. And so that's going to be very easy. In cell G26, now it's going to be an if statement, equals if config F4 equals true, then return region, otherwise nothing. Pressing enter. I'm going to copy the formula because it's going to be very similar for cell H26. And instead of displaying region, now it's going to be subregion. So now when I check the button, it's going to display the data, but the headers as well. All right, guys, I think it's time to take a break. That's the end of the second video. And in the third and final video, we'll apply conditional formatting, we'll create charts, and the rankings as well. So I'll see you guys in the next video.